I had a thought that I would be the last person in London who didn't have a tattoo. I was looking in the window of a tattooing place and saw a sign that said, tattoos, seen, unseen and foreseen. I went in and said to the man, excuse me, but your sign tattoos, seen, foreseen and unseen, what's that about? He said, a tattoo that's seen is one that you can see. A tattoo that's foreseen is one where you choose which people you want to see it. And a tattoo that's unseen is one you can't see. I get the seen tattoos, I said, but what's this foreseen one? How does that work? They're digitally pre-arranged tattoos, so they can only be seen by the people you choose. Wow, I said. There's an app on phones now, he said, which we hook up to. The app does it. You program in who you want to see your tattoo. I've got a tattoo here, he said, pointing to his arm. Now, you can't see a tattoo there, but now look on this phone, and there, look, see? A tattoo. Well, actually, I can't. Well, it's just booting up, but you will, he said. Great, I said. I can think of a lot of uses for that. Now the other one, the unseen tattoo, is that one that's hidden, like kind of under your clothes or something? No, he said. It's one that no one can see. You mean it's somewhere private? I said. No. It's an invisible tattoo, he said. We do the tattoo anywhere on the client, but no one can see it. I've got one here, he said, and pointed to his arm. See that, he said? You can't see that one, can you? No, I said. That's perfect. I can't see a thing. Well, with me today is Francesca Simon, author of, as you may know, the great Horrid Henry books. Look at that great big stack I've got there, Francesca, all owned by my son, who was very cross that I came away with them. He wanted to be absolutely sure I was coming back with them.
Did he count them out?
He didn't. He did trust me, which is quite rare. And we'll also talk about a much newer book, The Monstrous Child. What a terrible title. So quite scary. But let's start with Horrid Henry.
Yes.
Right, great favourite with millions of children. How did you come up with that character, Horrid Henry?
Well, I was thinking a lot about families where there was a good child and a bad child, because I had one child, but a lot of my friends were having two, and I was just interested in the way that that parents decided who was the good child, who was the bad child, and that everybody in the family knew this. So I was interested in that. Also, I'm a big comic book lover, like every single children's author I've ever met in my life. And I like that kind of zap-pow dialogue. But I was just, it was a one-off story about a family where there's a horrid child and a perfect child. And I just wanted to play around with that because I think families are very funny, because almost like the best comedy shows, nobody chooses who is in that family. The kids don't choose the parents don't choose the kids, and somehow there you all are. So I wrote a little one-off story, which got turned down by my publisher because it wasn't what was requested. But I had a brilliant editor, and she said, I really like the story. Maybe we can add a few more, and then we can make it for slightly older kids. And I was really frightened about writing more than one story, and now I've written 100.
100?
100. There are 25 books and 100 Horrid Henry stories, and I was frightened about writing more than one.
And this thing about good child, bad child, that's quite sort of dangerous territory to even go there, because I mean, I'm a parent, you've got one kid, I've got more than one kid. I wouldn't dare even think that I've got a bad child, good child.
I mean, these terms are relatives. I mean, I have a niece and nephew, and when my niece started getting A's at school, her brother instantly started failing at school. So it's more like this sort of balance. I mean, these terms are relatives, but parents know, I mean, if you prefer, the naughty child and the well-behaved child.
Yes.
You know, I was interested in playing off those contrasts, but I was also interested in the fact, which I realized afterwards, but that Horrid Henry and Perfect Peter are two sides of everybody, that these are almost archetypes, so that
inside us, we've got a good bit and a bad bit.
Well, the bit that wants to behave, the bit that wants to do well, and then the other bit that wants to run around screaming and pull people's hair and kick things down. So there's this sort of tension in everyone. So in fact, they are two sides of everybody.
So when you're making up a story, I'm thinking of some of the children writing
Yeah.
now. You're making up a story. If you think you've got opposites inside you, let's say there's a sporty side or a
Absolutely.
not sporty side, or a showy offy side and a shy side, instead of trying to put them into one character, you can split them off, and so you have sporty person and not sporty
Well, that's
person,
what
and then you've got
happened-
two characters.
But that's what happened with all the Horrid Henry characters, because everybody behaves only according to their adjective. So it's moody Margaret, who's always moody, sour Susan, who's always sour. And it was quite funny to do all these characters who only behave in that one specific way. Weepy William, the child who always forgets everything. So it's, again, but that's a side of all of us.
Yes.
You know, everyone remembers it's no uniform day at school except for one child. That's
Yes.
Weepy William and my son, of course.
Yes. So that's quite a nice tip for people trying to write, I'm thinking, is that you pull out of yourself what we call a characteristic, a sort of thing about yourself,
Yeah.
and then make that into a whole character.
And that's also quite funny as well.
Yes.
Because nobody behaves like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, those roles can switch around. But it's also, you know, it was also about parents too. Because
Yes.
the kids as young as 4 would always tell me that it was the parents who had created Horrid Henry and Perfect Peter.
Well, I mean, whenever I've read the books, I've always read them to my kids, I've thought, well, actually, the parents, they're not actually that good,
They're
are
not.
they?
They're
not
well-meaning,
really.
but they've created.
Yeah.
Why can't you? You know the old joke about why can't you work as hard as your brother? Why can't you be as good as your sister? And that is like guaranteed. If someone said that to you, to make you want to be the exact opposite.
Yes, and my favourite line in all your books is, "Don't be horrid, Henry." And you think, well, what else is he going to be if he isn't going to be horrid?
Well, because the
Yeah.
first story, though, is a bit funny because I only thought of it as one story because it's an odd one to begin with, because it's Henry's horrid, okay, he's going to try to be perfect. But the joke of that is, of course, the parents make endless excuses for Peter behaving badly and Henry's behavior they just don't see.
Yes, yes. So this idea then maybe the parents are to blame, if you like, if we're going to do any blaming, the parents are to blame for this horrific stuff going on.
They are, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
they have a kid who doesn't fit in with what they want.
Yeah.
So it's about that as well on another level. But mainly it's meant to be very funny, and I think they are, because Henry is so impulsive. And that was the other thing I wanted to explore about. We're always told, you know, don't do this, don't do that, don't enter. And so it's a sort of safe way of kind of expiating all those desires. And the door says, do not enter. And Henry goes, ooh, I wonder what's there, and goes in.
Yes.
So it's that kind of freedom to express yourself. So it's like, it's all the reasons why everyone loves, you know, going to films, reading books, seeing theater, is you get the chance to explore safely what it's like to do this, what it's
To
like
do the things you mustn't do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
The other thing about Henry, which I love, is that he's always plotting, isn't he? He's always scheming. He's always trying to think of some plan.
Well, though I'm quite careful with that, because it's very rare. He doesn't sit on his bed and think, today I'm going to ruin the wedding. It's always that he wants something, and that's how I construct all the stories. So I always think, what does Henry want? Henry wants to get home in time to watch his favorite program. What's stopping him? That. Well, because he has to go to this wedding. Well, maybe he can speed things up. So it's more in aid of getting something else.
Right.
That stuff happens. And that he's greedy too. So he will plot to get things, but only in the moment. It's very rare that he plans things beforehand. He's impulsive, which is what makes him funny. Because we discovered early on that if he plotted too much early on, that stopped being funny.
And also, you get too much of what's going to happen, so you want to hide
Exactly.
that. So you're starting, so just in terms of like developing a character, you start from something that he wants. He's got to have it.
Totally key.
And he must have it. And there's things going on in life that are stopping him.
He has to go with his brother to the dentist. He doesn't want to. He wants to stay home and read his comic book.
Yeah.
So stuff will come from that. What does he want? What's stopping him getting what he wants?
Yes.
And what's the outcome? And often I don't know. I just kind of I put them in the situation and kind of listen to them. So if you have sort of strong characters, it's almost like you put them in a white box with a situation, and then you kind of let them go. Or, you know, both Henry and Peter want the same toy.
Yes.
So what happens? And I will explore what happens, usually the toy being destroyed or one of them changes his mind, but all that sibling stuff, because I'm the eldest of four.
Oh, right.
And I was always, what's the word? If you have four kids, you kind of depend on the older one behaving, because there's just too many kids. So
You had to be the goodie?
I had to be so I was the goodie at school, really good. I don't think there's ever been such a good child in the world as me at school, and I was terrible at home. So I was, a Horrid Henry at home and Perfect Peter at school.
Wonderful. Francesca Simon, thanks ever so much indeed.
Thank you.
That's lovely that
Thank
you
you,
came
Michael.
and talked to us. Now, it would be great if you subscribed. That is, you become a subscriber. Look out for the subscribe button. What happens, you see, is that I make new vids every few months, and then I post them up one a week. So if you subscribe, you get to see the new ones just as they come hot off the press. Eeeew.